A rejected credit card, a parking app that refused to download, and not a single coin in my pocket. My first minutes in Edinburgh were an absolute disaster, and I've traveled to over 60 countries, so I thought I'd seen every travel nightmare there was. But what followed wasn't just redemption. It was the single best afternoon of my entire Scotland road trip. In this Edinburgh travel guide, I'm taking you through every mistake I made, every hidden gem that saved the day, and how a city that broke me in the first hour ended up becoming the highlight I still think about months later. After breakfast at our hotel in Pitlochry, we hit the road with Edinburgh on our minds, the final chapter of our 5-day Scotland road trip. A 40-minute drive brought us to Perth, a city I hadn't planned to visit at all. Crossing the River Tay still as glass, reflecting Kinol Parish Church like a mirror, we pulled into the free riverside parking at Norrie Miller Walk. We spent no more than 15 minutes here, capturing the landscape and framing St. Matthew's Church of Scotland against a sky so clean it looked filtered. I remember thinking how immaculate Perth felt, almost unnervingly perfect, like the universe was lulling me into a false sense of security. On the bridge, I took one last photo and said to myself, Scotland has been so easy so far. That thought aged about as badly as it possibly could. 50 minutes later, Edinburgh appeared on the horizon, and within moments of arriving, the city declared war on my sanity. We headed straight for Dean Village, easily one of Edinburgh's most beautiful hidden gems, but the parking lots near the area had no credit card payment devices, not one. My phone, tied to a different country's app store, refused to let me download the parking app, and I had absolutely no coins. Zero. I've navigated border crossings, language barriers, and road closures across 60 countries, and the parking meter in Edinburgh made me feel more helpless than any of them. I sat in that car, engine off, staring at a payment terminal with no card slot and no contactless pad, just a smug little QR code leading to an app my foreign phone couldn't touch. After a delay I'm embarrassed to admit the length of, I walked to a nearby cafe, bought a coffee I didn't want purely for the coins, trudged back and finally parked. But those wasted minutes had infected everything, and for the first hour, I saw Edinburgh through the lens of pure, unfiltered frustration. I walked into Dean Village, still carrying that anger like a weight on my shoulders, past Rama Church. Across Dean Bridge, and I'll be honest, I barely registered the iconic high-angle views because I was still mentally replaying that parking lot on a loop. Then, we descended to Dean's Bray Bridge, the most photographed spot in the area, offering breathtaking perspectives, framed by nature on both sides. And somewhere between the bridge and the water of Leith flowing beneath an iron crossing, trees so impossibly green, they looked painted onto the sky, something shifted. The frustration didn't vanish, but it began to lose its grip. I stood there in silence, watching early morning tourists wander through in visible admiration, and it hit me. Even my worst mood couldn't survive this place. We explored deeper, narrow cobblestone paths, the sound of running water replacing the noise in my head until we reached the iron bridge itself. Flowing water below, greenery in every direction, a forest hidden inside a capital city. On the way back to the car, we passed Dean Cemetery and the Dean, a magnificent church that marked the end of our first Edinburgh neighborhood. And somewhere between the tombstones and the steeple, I realized the anger was completely gone, replaced by something I didn't expect, the quiet certainty that Edinburgh was about to become something special. With Dean Village behind us and my entire emotional state transformed, we drove just 4 minutes to Edinburgh Waverley Station. Handing back the rental car keys felt oddly ceremonial. 5 days, 600 miles, the Scottish Highlands, Glenfinnan, Skye and Pitlochry all reduced to a receipt and a handshake. As we walked out of the rental office into the Edinburgh afternoon, the city suddenly felt different. It wasn't just another stop on the itinerary anymore. It was our home for the next 2 days. A quick lunch at Nando's near the station, €40, and the peri-peri chicken genuinely tasted like victory after that parking fiasco. Then we walked with our luggage to the Travelodge on Rose Street, one of the most central locations in the entire city. 2 nights cost us €380. Dropping those bags on the bed felt like drawing a line under the road trip. The driving was done. The real Edinburgh was about to begin. A short walk from Rose Street brought us past the William Pitt the Younger statue, then along Frederick Street past Ashton Hall and St. Stephen's Church sharing the same building, past the Scottish Episcopal Church until we reached Circus Lane. If a location scout for a classic British film designed a street from scratch, they'd build this. It's one of Edinburgh's most photographed Instagram spots. A stone-paved curve lined with townhouses so immaculate they look curated greenery and flowers cascading from every facade. Walking, it felt less like tourism and more like stepping onto a set. I had expected crowds, but it was calmer and more peaceful than I'd imagined, though the content creators queuing for concept shoots at the most scenic corner did test my patience. Still, a small price to pay for one of the most aesthetic streets I've walked in any European city. Retracing our steps, we continued along George Street, and this is where Edinburgh's energy became impossible to ignore. The Edinburgh New Town Church, the Dome Restaurant with its Greco-Roman columns, St. Andrew's Square Garden, and the towering Melville Monument. But here's what I wasn't prepared for. Edinburgh doesn't just display its monuments, it makes you feel their weight pressing down on you. Turning a corner, Scott Monument suddenly appeared, a 61-meter Victorian Gothic spire dedicated to Sir Walter Scott, where climbing 287 steps rewards you with a 360-degree panorama of the old town. It's visible from nearly every corner of the city, this impossible spire of Victorian ambition piercing the skyline. Then came Princess Street, the busiest main road in Edinburgh, and the single most striking thing was the density of the transportation network. I genuinely think Edinburgh might be the city where I've seen the most hop-on hop-off buses from so many different companies in my entire life. Standing there with the Balmoral's iconic clock tower on one side, the very hotel where Rowling finished the last Harry Potter book, and trams gliding past. It was genuinely impossible not to feel like I was walking through Scotland's answer to Paris. After a short walk, Calton Hill began to reveal itself, and this is where everything shifted. Climbing up, I passed the Nelson Monument and the Observatory House, whose architecture feels almost Athenian, then the Dugald Stewart Monument, which might just be the most perfectly positioned structure on this hill, with its breathtaking frame against the skyline. But the real showstopper is the National Monument of Scotland, a half-finished replica of the Parthenon they call Scotland's Disgrace, because construction started in 1822 and the money simply ran out before it could be completed. Standing next to that beautifully failed monument, and looking out across Edinburgh Arthur's Seat rising in the distance, the castle perched on its rock. The medieval skyline stretching below, I felt something I genuinely didn't expect. Gratitude. Not just for the view, for the parking machine that rejected my card. Because without that disaster, this moment wouldn't have hit the same way. The contrast made every single thing I was looking at feel earned. Let me break down every euro we spent on day one, not because I think spreadsheets are exciting, but because knowing the real numbers is what actually helps you decide if Edinburgh fits your travel budget. Lunch at Nando's near Waverley Station, about €40. Our Travelodge on Rose Street, €380 for 2 nights central, comfortable and worth every cent for a location that puts you within walking distance of practically everything. Dinner at Hong Fu Noodle Bar, €27. A quick stop at Sainsbury's, €9.50. Day 1 total, approximately €456. Now, if you're visiting Edinburgh on a budget, and I've explored this city both ways, you can halve the accommodation cost by booking further from the center or choosing a well-reviewed hostel, and keeping food under €30 for the day is completely doable with a bit of planning. Edinburgh doesn't have to be expensive. But after 5 days on the road, the convenience of staying central was absolutely worth the splurge. Let me be honest about everything I got wrong because these are the details most travel guides conveniently leave out. The parking disaster speaks for itself. Always research the parking system before you arrive in Edinburgh and carry coins as if your sanity depends on it. But there were two other mistakes still nagging at me. First, and I'm genuinely still annoyed about this, I pushed too hard to see everything on day one instead of letting the city breathe. Edinburgh rewards slow exploration, and trying to cram Dean Village, Circus Lane, Princess Street, and Calton Hill into a single afternoon meant we arrived at Calton Hill maybe 30 minutes too late. I missed the softest golden light by the width of a coffee I never even wanted, and I'm telling you this because I don't want you to make the same mistake. Second, those content creator queues at Circus Lane aren't going anywhere. If you want that iconic shot without waiting behind 3 separate concept shoots, go early in the morning. The light is better, the street is empty, and you'll have it almost entirely to yourself. So does Edinburgh live up to the hype? After one of the most frustrating first hours I've ever had in a new city, followed by one of the most captivating afternoons of my entire Scotland trip, my answer is an unreserved yes. This city doesn't just impress you. It earns you one cobblestone street, one hidden village, one half-finished monument at a time. In the next video, we're waking up before the crowds to experience the real Edinburgh, the quiet morning light, the empty streets, and the side of the city most day trippers never see. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to Galip Travels. All the useful booking links and deals I mentioned are waiting for you in the description below. I'll be in the comments answering your questions, so feel free to drop them there, and if you've ever had a parking nightmare ruin your first impression of a city, I need to hear that story.